Do you have any idea how much torment I've been going through? I've wanted a divorce for a long time, with a twisted expression on his face. My husband Derek screamed hysterically at his mother, Gloria. I stood by the dining table, momentarily disoriented. Before it finally hit me, I had been reborn. Stop arguing, let's get divorced. I said, I agree. It was as if someone had hit pause. Derek and Gloria, who had been shouting at each other moments earlier, both turned to look at me. I raised my hand to stop Gloria, who was about to walk over and try to persuade me, and repeated myself, since you're in such pain, I'll give you what you want. Let's divorce. We'll go file the paperwork tomorrow. With that, I turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind me. Derek and I were the classic campus couple who married after college. We had a son and a daughter. Even though we lived under the same roof with his parents, we got along fairly well thanks to our easygoing personalities. But after our daughter was born, things began to change. Derek got involved with another woman. At first he tried to hide it and showed some guilt. But after I caught them and confronted him, he dropped all pretense. He stopped being ashamed and relied on the fact that I wouldn't leave because of the kids or the years we had shared. From then on, he openly flaunted his affair, no longer bothering to cover anything up. Today, it was the kids who accidentally brought it up. They mentioned that Derek had taken them to the amusement park with the auntie from outside. The two of them went off to ride the romantic Ferris wheel, while leaving our son and daughter sitting alone on a bench. It was a hot day, and our daughter suffered heat stroke and started vomiting. Fortunately, a staff member found them and got help just in time to prevent something worse. Hearing that, I completely lost it. I accused Derek of being unfit to be a father. His judgment clouded by lust. Gloria tried to step in and mediate, worried the fight would escalate. But Derek turned on her instead, blaming her and the rest of the family for pressuring him into staying married, which was why he hadn't been able to divorce me sooner. That led to the scene we just had at the dining table, while Derek and Gloria continued arguing in the dining room. I didn't bother with them. I opened the wardrobe, took out the clothes I'd need for tomorrow, grabbed my pillow and blanket from the bed, and left the master bedroom. I headed straight for the kids' room, locked the door behind me, and didn't hesitate for a second. My two children were sitting on the edge of their bunk bed, their big bright eyes full of confusion. I set my things down, picked up my daughter and pulled my son close to me. The room was dark, and the three of us huddled together like castaways on a lonely island. If Daddy and I get divorced, would that be okay with you? I asked, though I was addressing both of them. My eyes were fixed on my son, since my daughter was old enough to understand the relationship between Derek and me had already been strained to her. Our marriage had always seemed full of tension, but it was different for my son. He had once experienced a time when our family was harmonious and filled with love. When it came to divorce, it was his feelings I worried about most. Ace expected. He said nothing. Mom tried to endure it. I continued softly. I thought I just held on you and your sister could grow up in a complete family, but now it seems like I just can't take it anymore. For now, I can only take one of you with me. Your dad won't agree to let me take you both. So can your sister come with me first? You'll stay here for now. I promise I'll come see you every week the moment you finish school. On Fridays, I'll be there to pick you up. I held back my heartbreak as I watched the tears well up in my son's eyes and silently roll down his cheeks. Mom, you should divorce. Dad, he finally said. Through sniffles, I pulled both kids tighter into my arms, just like when they were younger. I laid down on the bed with one on each side, gently coaxing them to sleep. Soon exhausted from crying, They fell asleep with their faces resting against my arms. As I looked at them, my heart ached. I had raised these children with my own hands, and even now they were just as precious as ever. I thought back to my past life, when I wanted a divorce, but was stopped by Derek's parents. Their voices still echoed in my ears. Divorce is hard on the kids. Where there's a stepmom, there'll be a stepdad. That guy down the street was like this too. But didn't he come back in the end? It's always best to stay with your first spouse. Don't worry, we'll only ever acknowledge you as our daughter-in-law. That vixen will never be allowed into this family. My son and daughter had grown up together since birth. If you get divorced, the kids will be split up. How could you bear that? The overwhelming guilt I felt toward my children always crept in at moments like this, wrapping around me like a heavy fog. Yes, divorcing would mean giving that other woman exactly what she wanted. It would turn my children into kids from a broken home. They might even go on to have another child, build a perfect little family, and move on. And what about us? Just because I refused to divorce, did that mean we had to keep living as pathetic, shameful bystanders? What if someday things took a turn, and my children could once again have a complete family? So I waited 1 year, then another. My relationship with Derek was like the tide, sometimes calm, sometimes violent. The calm came from me constantly swallowing my anger and accepting his betrayal. The chaos came from the resentment and fury I felt toward his refusal to take any responsibility for our family, knowing I didn't truly want a divorce. Derek only became more reckless. Eventually, he moved in with his mistress in the provincial capital, leaving both our children and our aging parents behind for me to take care of. I ran around like a spinning top, always in motion, but going nowhere. I squeezed out a few moments to catch my breath, cursed this sorry excuse of a man under it. But deep down, I was still hoping my children would grow up healthy and successful, hoping Derek would come to his senses and step up to be the father he was supposed to be. The cost of staying silent was enormous, even when I realized how wrong this path was. I couldn't let go, but who said it first that the cost of silence should never be the reason to avoid making a major life decision? And wasn't the price I paid with my life big enough? My sonny used to be such a sweet, affectionate boy, grew up right before my eyes into someone just like his father, tall, handsome, but utterly irresponsible. During his rebellious teen years, he completely rejected my authority as a mother. He saw as a loser. He didn't even get into a regular high school, drifted through vocational school, bounced between jobs, none of them lasting. Despite his good looks, he was all surface, the kind of guy that any decent girl would see through after a few dates and turn away from in disappointment. Eventually he got together with a girl just like him, immature, messy, and the two of them made a wreck of their lives. My daughter, once so clever and full of life, grew into a woman. A few words she followed the expected path, got into college, landed a stable job. But just like me, the partner she thought she would grow old with ended up cheating on her too. When he urged her to get a divorce, she just looked at me with eyes as empty as dried out grass and asked, "Mom, if all men are like this, what's the point of fighting?" She gradually stopped going out, stopped talking to people living the same silent life I once had. Only she was even quieter, more numb. I suspected something was wrong with her mentally and tried to get her to see a therapist, but she refused me every time. Eventually Thestrus caught up with me, and right when I just retired and received my pension, I collapsed near the end of my life. Derek finally appeared at my hospital bedside. To him, making the effort to show up was probably some grand act of mercy. "I left 2 good kids with you, And look what you've turned them into." He sneered. "One's a failure, the other's just like. You no man wants her marrying. You was the biggest mistake of my life. But hey, I did right by you, didn't I? You got the good reputation. Everyone thinks I'm some scumbag, hiding from society while you're the victim. No wonder I never came back. And now you're dying. Finally, I can bring her back without any shame. And don't think whatever little money you squirreled away is enough to make up for what we lost. But I won't hold it against you anymore. Let's just leave it at that." I slowly closed my eyes amid the disgusting ramble of this shameless old bastard. The bitterness in my heart was unbearable. Life is precious. How did mine end up like this? I wasn't ready to go. I wasn't ready at all. Maybe some soft-hearted God happened to pass by and heard my desperate, bitter complaint. Maybe they couldn't bear to listen anymore. With a casual flick of their hand, they sent me back. And somehow, miraculously, I was reborn, right in the middle of what looked like just another ordinary family fight. This time, I would choose a different path. I would take my children and live a completely different life. My phone screen lit up, snapping me out of my thoughts. I unlocked it. A message from Derek had just arrived. "Come here for a second. Here we go again. In my past life, after a big fight, Derek would always come over, act like he was trying to smooth things over, tell me how things were for him, and then wrap me up in hugs, kisses, and intimate moments as if I still mattered to him. But the truth was, I had no spine. I kept letting these brief fake moments of affection chip away at the resolve I'd only just begun to build. I couldn't help but fall into unrealistic fantasies about him. But not this time. We're getting divorced, so I'm sleeping with the kids tonight. If you have anything to say it tomorrow at the Civil Affairs, office. You should really think this through. Maybe talk to your parents before making a final decision. This isn't just about the two of us," he texted. "Oh really? But when you cheated on me, you didn't think to inform my parents." I snapped, "You don't need to worry about the divorce. I can make that decision myself. If you don't show up tomorrow, you're a coward and a dog." Maybe it was the certainty in my heart, but it felt like that old fire I had in high school. Debate competitions was back, my words, where sharp aimed directly at the weak spots. I could already imagine Derek's face turning stormy as he read my message in the master bedroom. This time he really pushed too far. The next morning, I dropped the kids off and went straight to my office to hand in my resignation. I had taken that job years ago because it was close to home and made it easier to care for the family in my past life. I wasted decades stuck in that low-paying, exhausting position. But in this life, I wasn't keeping the scumbag husband, and I sure wasn't keeping that job either. Right after resigning, I headed straight for the Civil Affairs Bureau. Derek, on the other hand, dragged his feet and still hadn't shown up. I called him. "I was busy this morning. I can't make it today. Let's reschedule. You are busy." "And I'm not," I snapped. "Why should I have to accommodate your schedule? If you don't show up today, I'll go to your office and request the day off on your behalf and make sure your boss gets a full report from me." "Are you insane?" he hissed. Not long after Derek stormed into the lobby of the Civil Affairs office. Fuming, we submitted all the documents for the divorce. There wasn't much property to divide when I married him. He had nothing, and after years of sneaking around with his mistress, he hadn't saved a cent. All my income had gone into raising the kids, so I didn't have much saved. Either the house we lived in was bought after marriage, but there was still a hefty mortgage, and with housing prices plummeting in recent years, we'd probably lose money if we sold it. So I gave up on both cars, neither of which was worth much. We'd each take one. The real sticking point was custody. And Derek thought he had me figured out. You can take our daughter, but our son stays with me, he said. Of course, if you're willing to leave both kids with me, I won't ask for a cent in child support. He made it sound generous, but really he was just trying to manipulate me, thinking I wouldn't be able to part with the child I held closest to my heart. That's fine. You can have our son. I'll take our daughter, I said, calmly. He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. He glanced at me in surprise. Well, then the child support you owe me cancels out with mine, or even that's fine. But I need to set clear visitation terms. I want access to the kids during all non-school hours. I can visit or take them with me, and neither you nor your family can interfere. Of course, as their father, you'll have the same visitation rights. Maybe because the terms I proposed were so reasonable, Derek didn't even bother to argue and just agreed. Once all the documents were completed, we only needed to wait out the 30-day cooling-off period before the divorce could be finalized. As I stepped out of the Civil Affairs office, I finally made the call to my parents. At this point, it was time to tell them everything compared to Derek's penniless state before marriage. My birth family was warm and supportive. Recently, there had been a Korean drama called After Hardship. I Found You, and the male lead, Leon Kwan, had become a fan favorite online. So good, he didn't even seem real. But I knew better. That kind of man does exist. My father had been just like that. A good husband, a great dad. Unfortunately, like Leon Kwan in the show, he passed away suddenly from illness. By the time I wanted to take care of him, it was already too late. That was one of my greatest regrets in my past life. Hearing my parents' voices again nearly broke me, but I forced myself to stay calm as I explained what had happened and what I decided as expected. My mum was shocked, then outraged. She went on a rant cursing. Derek then ended up just heartbroken and worried for me. My dad, as always, kept things simple. Don't worry, come home. Everything can be worked out. I'm sorry for letting you down. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. In that moment, every bit of injustice I'd buried exploded out of me. What an idiot, who does he think he is? My mum snapped back when he was still my son-in-law. We treated him like somebody now that he's not. He's not even worth the weeds growing on the roadside. Sweetheart, the most important thing is that you're okay. When I got back home, I started packing mine and my daughter's things. Even though we technically still had 30 days before the divorce became official, after 10 years of marriage, everything I owned had already become entangled with this house. There was no way I could pack it all quickly. Derek's parents came by again, trying to talk me out of it. It was the same tired routine, repeating the same old arguments, this time, no matter how much they nagged. I didn't respond, just kept my head down and focused on sorting my own belongings. Eventually, Gloria came over and grabbed my arm. She wiped her tears and, trying to sound sincere, said, "Lena, listen to me. A woman's life isn't like a man's. Our children are our whole world. If you get divorced, what about the kids? Don't worry, our family will always see you as our daughter-in-law. Derek will come back to his senses. Your good days are still ahead of you. I don't want what's ahead. I want now." I shook off her hand firmly. And even if Derek comes scrolling back, I still don't want him for a moment. Gloria looked stunned, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "And what about the kids?" she asked. "Children need to grow up together. That's how they become close. If you separate them, maybe you'll feel better, but they'll suffer. Why not just leave both of them here with us?" That actually made me laugh, both in this life and the last. Gloria had always tried to guilt-trip me with the same manipulative argument. hoping I'd abandon the idea of divorce. But how could I? The kids carry the Lou name. Gloria's tone weakened under her breath. I heard her mutter, just because your parents couldn't have a son, doesn't mean you get to steal my grandson. She said it quietly. But I heard every word loud and clear. For the first time, I really looked at this woman. She always dressed plainly, always wore a polite smile, and was warm to all the neighbors, because we'd always treated each other formally and politely. Everyone said she was the ideal mother-in-law, someone who never made things difficult or picked on her. Daughter-in-law, I used to believe that too, but now I remembered something from early in my marriage. One time Derek and I had a big fight. He yelled at me to get out. Back then I still had some dignity left. I picked up our baby and went back to my parents' house. No matter how much Derek's apologized and begged, I refused to come back eventually. His parents came with gifts to make peace. By that point, my anger had already faded, and seeing a way out, I decided to give in. Andrew turned home with Derek. We were affectionate again, just like nothing had happened later. My mom called me. She hesitated before saying, "About your mother-in-law, you might want to keep an eye on her. She did come over to smooth things out." Yes, but for every 3 things she scolded Derek for, she found a way to criticize you once too. She's clearly holding something against you in her heart. She's just being fair. I replied cheerfully. After all, I'm not perfect either. I'm just saying, Mom continued. When you go over to apologize for your own son, that's fine, but there's no reason to criticize the other person's child in front of their parents. Even if she only said a few things, she was holding back 100 more. She was just worried that saying too much would hurt the harmony between both families, as always my mother let the matter drop after planting the seed. Now that I think about it, Mum had been absolutely right. Gloria always pretended to be on my side, but in truth, she was just using me to help Derek keep things stable on the home front, to be a free live-in nanny and housekeeper. She often spoke as if she disapproved of Derek's behaviour, even claimed she'd go raise hell at that mistress's family home. But she never actually did anything in the end. He was still her son, and as far as she was concerned, if some other woman had to suffer for her son to come out ahead, that was just a bargain she could live with in Derek's mind. Keeping the official wife at home while flying colourful side flags outside was a skill to be proud of. But if the home flag fell and the side flags started appearing inside the house, that was no longer something to brag about. It became a disgrace, a blatant embarrassment to the family's reputation. Enough with the persuasion. I said, if he wants the divorce, then let him have it at some point. Derek had returned home when he saw his mother standing in front of me, practically begging. His face immediately twisted with annoyance. Lena only said she wanted a divorce because she was emotional last night. He said, coolly, for the sake of the kids, I can let you stay in this house. But if you insist on holding this against me, then fine, let's divorce. I've been sick of you for a long time anyway. Derek roughly pulled his mother aside and marched up to me with a menacing glare. He stared at the man I once loved with all my heart. At that moment, his face overlapped completely with the selfish, shameless man who had stood by my hospital bed in my last life. The same disgusting arrogance, the same ugly soul back. Then I must have been under some kind of spell to waste half my life on a man like this. My silence made Derek think I was backing down. He adjusted his tone, less aggressive now. If you're really set on leaving, go ahead, but don't think for a second you're taking our son. Actually, I think our daughter should. Stay. Too, it's better for her to be here. You're right, I replied calmly. Let their daughter stay as well. I shut my suitcase without another glance at them and walked straight out the door. I loaded the luggage into the car and drove toward my parents' home. While waiting, ate a red light. I opened the home surveillance app on my phone and replayed the footage from just after I left. Sure enough, the moment I walked out the door, Derek's whole family started mocking me. She's really serious about the divorce. She's even leaving the kids behind. His mother said, first, "Come on, Mom. Do you really believe that?" Derek scoffed, with smug confidence. If she actually planned to give up the kids, I'd believe it, but she's bluffing. Exactly. Gloria chimed in. There's no way Lena would willingly leave the kids. She treats them like her whole world. Then Gloria let out a long sigh. You two, honestly. How many of those mistresses are actually any good? That woman Amber. She's about the same age as Lena, but not even half as educated. What exactly are you after? Oh please, what do you know? Derek snapped. What good is education? Anyway, Amber brings me business deals. Can Lena do that? Amber is willing to be with me without any status. She knows how to dress, how to charm people. What does Lena have? All she does is run around after the kids. All day she's a worn-out housewife with nothing to offer. I'd be doing her a favor, giving her the title of wife, and she still isn't satisfied. When I've got something better out there, why should I settle for her? She should take a look in the mirror. What does she think she is? Still some pretty college girl. Don't worry, Gloria reassured him. Even if Lena's useless, the boy is still part of our family. No matter how great Amber is, I'd never trust her to raise our grandson. She's been divorced. She's already got a kid. I'm not stupid enough to raise someone else's child. This setup works just fine. Lena stays here to look after the kids. I feel at ease in a few months. You and Amber can move to the provincial capital, out of sight, out of mind. Watching Derek's calculated expression on the screen made my blood boil. Even though I had already come to terms with his true nature in my past life, I couldn't stop my fists from clenching. The light turned green. I shut the app and focused on driving that whole family, each one more fake than the last. When Derek married me, he admitted that his parents were farmers from the countryside. They had no house, no car, not even basic retirement insurance. My parents were both employees at a state-owned company, and I was their only daughter. Because they loved me deeply, they tried to accept Derek too. They never made things hard for him. They told people it was a love match, and even waived the bride price happily. They prepared a full doughy and sent me off with their blessings. Not long after the wedding, we had our first child. We took out a loan to buy a house, and our finances quickly became strained. Thankfully, my parents stepped in to support us in every way they could. Because of their help, our home life finally started to stabilize and move on to a somewhat normal track. Maybe it was all just too easy. So easy that Derek forgot everything. He forgot how at our wedding, his relatives held Gloria's hand and praised him for being so lucky, for settling his marriage without lifting a finger. He forgot how he cried like a baby at our ceremony, promising all our friends and family that he'd treat me well for the rest of his life. Now somehow I was the one who was no longer worthy. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. By the time I snapped out of my thoughts, I realized my foot was pressing harder and harder on the gas pedal. The car was speeding up. I forced myself to calm down. Lena, you need to stay focused. God gave you this second chance, not so you could repeat your old mistakes, but so you could change the tragic ending of your past life. Divorcing that piece of trash was just the first step this time. I have to take care of my parents, raise my kids well, and most importantly, take care of myself. Soon I arrived at my parents' house. My mom looked surprised to see me back during work hours. You finished the divorce already? There's still a 30-day cooling off period, I replied, then turned to my dad. Dad, I came back today to take you to the hospital for a full checkup. The sudden request caught him off guard. A checkup? What for? I feel fine. I'm not going. I was too overwhelmed with everything in my head. Memories from my past. Life, the chaos of the present. I didn't have the patience to explain in my previous life. My father's illness had come on. Suddenly he ended up in the ICU. For 2 whole months, my parents drained all their savings, trying to save him. But in the end, he didn't make it. My mom's world collapsed. Mine did too. I couldn't take that chance again. I wanted to rush him to the hospital immediately, as if that might change fate. Dad, please, I begged. Don't ask me why. Just treat this as a favor to me. Please get the checkup right. Now what's wrong with you, kid? My dad looked at me completely at a loss, and seeing the desperation in my expression, he finally caved. Okay, let's go grab my ID. We might need to stay overnight. I rushed to pack everything we might need for a hospital stay, then dragged my stunned dad straight to the hospital. What was supposed to be a simple blood test, an X-ray turned into a full round of endoscopy and other diagnostics, because I insisted on checking everything thoroughly. Some of the tests had to be done on an empty stomach, so we ended up staying overnight at the hospital. The next day, the results came back. My dad had a 3-centimeter ulcer in his stomach. It was already necrotic and blackened. The doctor said it could perforate at any time. A hole that large could cause massive abdominal infection with devastating consequences. Thankfully, this time we caught it in time. The hospital quickly scheduled surgery, with my mum staying at the hospital to care for him. I could finally breathe a little easier during the 30-day cooling off period. I went back and forth between my parents' house and Derek's, moving our things bit by bit like an ant carrying food. He slowly cleaned out and set up a room for myself and the kids. When my dad was discharged, he noticed the rows of thick books lined up on the shelves. All these books are kids these days. Under that much pressure, they're still in elementary school. Don't be too hard on them. I brushed off imaginary dust from one of the books. These aren't for the kids, Dad. They're for me. I've decided to study for the civil service exam. I had wanted to do that in my previous life too. I took the test once without any prep and still managed to place in the top 30 out of 2,000 candidates. That gave me a lot of confidence. But when I wanted to try again the following year, Derek doused my enthusiasm with cold water. You think it's that easy to pass? Every spot is already taken before the exam even starts, even if you do get in. So what, it's all grunt work, long hours and no pay. You'd be lucky if you made enough to cover the kids' formula. Not long after that, I found out I was pregnant with our second child, our daughter. Her arrival completely derailed my study plans. Civil service exam became an unreachable dream. But this time, there was no marriage holding me back. The kids weren't living with me at the moment. I only had one more shot, but I decided to take it. The 30 days passed quickly. On the last day, I messaged Derek. What time are we meeting tomorrow to finalize the divorce paperwork? He replied, I'm busy. We'll go another day when I have time. He was playing the same trick all over again. This time, I didn't say a word. I opened a folder and sent over multiple files in one go, screenshots, screen recordings, and even audio files. They were all the evidence I'd silently gathered of Derek's affairs. A few minutes later, once I figured he'd probably gone through most of it, I sent one more message. If I don't see you at the Civil Affairs office by 8:30 tomorrow morning, I'll release all of this. Either we divorce or you go viral. You choose. The next morning, as I had hoped, Derek showed up and we finalized our divorce. After leaving the registration office, we each got into our own cars. As soon as I sat down, I received a message from him. Don't tell Amber about the divorce. Yet, I don't. Want her to know. I'll wait 6 months if you want to reconcile during that time. We can talk. No matter how many tricks a scumbag has up his sleeve, their core logic is always the same. I still love you even if I'm garbage. I let out a hollow laugh and didn't bother replying. Truth was I hadn't planned to make it public for now. Anyway, they say, widows get judged unfairly, but divorced women are no different. My only goal at the moment was to focus on my studies. I wished I could be invisible. Why on earth would I go post some "I'm single now" declaration for attention that afternoon? I went to pick up my kids, Mia and Noah, from school. She was in 3rd grade. He was in 6th. They were both deeply attached to me. I took them to the most expensive hotel buffet in the city. They were ecstatic while we were eating. I gently explained to them what was happening with the divorce. I don't want to be apart from you, Mommy Mia pouted, her lips trembling on the verge of tears. I stroked her little head and comforted her. We'll be apart for 5 days a week. No, as soon as school's out, I'll come pick you up during those 5 days. You need to study hard, and Mommy will study hard too. Let's race, see who learns better and faster. I turned to Noah and added, you're the big brother. When Mommy's not around, you need to take care of your sister. You need to protect her, okay? In my past life, I did everything for that boy. I protected him from everything, gave him the easiest life I could, and raised him into an overgrown child. He wasn't a bad kid, but he never grew into the kind of responsible man he should have become. His education, his job, everything was a mess. In some ways, I ruined him. Noah, being older, was clearly upset, but still nodded obediently. Give Mommy a little time, I said softly. I promise I'll come get you both and take you away from that house for good. Do you believe me? His eyes lit up instantly. Then, as if he remembered something, he looked at me nervously. But Mom, you don't have custody. Daddy has it. Will he let you? I blinked at him and grinned. Don't worry. I have a plan, you just have to believe in me. Life after the divorce was unexpectedly fulfilling. I woke up every morning to my own cooking, accompanied my dad to follow-up appointments, and exercised regularly. Most importantly, after living through such a tragic past life, I was more motivated than ever to prepare for the civil service exam. With no emotional baggage dragging me down, I studied with clarity and focus. My progress was lightning fast. Every day, the kids called me on their smartwatches. They missed me. They also tattled constantly. Mommy, I was late again this morning. Mommy, Noah only got 80 on his math test. Dad scolded him, but Dad's never even home. He doesn't help with homework like you do. He just yells, Mommy, Grandpa, and Grandma's food is yucky. Mommy, Auntie Amber moved in with us. I asked her about my English homework, and she didn't understand it. Mommy, I hate Daddy. There was little I could say to that, except to comfort them and give them something to look forward to. So we made weekend plans. Movies, little trips, picnics, amusement parks. They spent their 5 days apart from me in anticipation. And even though there were moments of sadness during the week, just knowing how much fun we'd have on the weekend made everything else bearable. One night Derek called when, "Are you taking Mia?" he asked. "Amber's pregnant, and there are too many kids in the house. I can't manage them all. I'm busy too," he added, as if justifying himself. "Didn't you say Mia would stay with you more? It's better for the two of them to be together, right?" I replied, lightly busy from what I see. "You're living your best life ever since the divorce." I'd been posting all sorts of peaceful, happy photos on my social media. New manicures, shopping hauls, Pilates sessions with my girlfriends, check-ins at trendy cafes and scenic spots. Just a few days ago for Valentine's Day, I posted a bouquet of red roses with the caption, "Someone will love you like an angel someday." I wasn't about to let them separate my kids. Now we've already hurt them enough by divorcing. I said, now you want to split them up just because your new wife moved in. Come on, seeing that I still wouldn't give in. Derek sneered. I knew it, you're still not over me. Let me tell you something. Lena Amber moving in was unexpected. I didn't plan on her getting pregnant. I was even going to give you 6 more months, but you ruined that. So here's the deal. He added, either take both Mia and Noah, or don't. Take either. Finally he said, exactly what I wanted to hear. I kept my excitement and bitterness buried deep inside. Fine, I said. I'll take them. Both, I don't care. They're both lost anyway. You should take them. I always knew all that. I'm staying for the kids talk was fake. Now you're just ditching them so you can go find some new man. Huh? You're taking them like it or not. Mia's custody is already yours. Noah too. They both clearly prefer you. Didn't even give me time to respond before hanging up. Phase 1 of my plan. Complete the truth. All those photo snails shopping vacations roses. They weren't even mine. I'd stolen them from another account and set the privacy, so only Derek and his relatives could see them. Let them think I was living it. Oop, in reality, I was neck deep in civil service, exam prep. I had no time for luxury. I barely slept studying every night until sunrise. I was fighting like my life depended on it the next morning. I took my time and didn't arrive at Derek's place until after 7 a.m. When I walked in, Mia and Noah were already sitting on the couch, their suitcases neatly packed beside them. Clearly, they couldn't wait to be sent off. Mommy, I missed you so much. Mia ran straight into my arms, hugging me tight, even though we had just seen each other. Sunday, her enthusiasm never faded. Lena, it's so late. Gloria complained the kids have school tomorrow. And Amber's pregnant. She needs her rest. 2 months without seeing her. And she was already a different woman when she caught sight of me, refreshed, glowing, stylish. Her face twisted with jealousy to think a divorced woman like you dares to flaunt herself like this. She scoffed. Unbelievable, just don't corrupt my grandkids. I crossed my arms. Well then, maybe I shouldn't take Noah. Should I just leave him here? Leave him. He glanced at Amber, who'd been hiding behind Gloria this whole time. Don't think I don't know what you've been doing, Amber said with a sneer. You've been using the kids to spy on us, reporting back to you every little thing, acting like you're free now. Finally getting your revenge, singing the song of the liberated, huh? I actually laughed as far as mistresses. When I didn't bother with them then, or now they weren't worth my energy after all. If the egg breaks, you can't blame the flies for showing up. Look at yourself, I said calmly. You're getting uglier by the day. People might think the loose just hired a live-in nanny. I brushed my freshly styled hair back with a smile, compared to a tired, unkempt woman in the early stages of pregnancy. I was glowing on every level. Aren't you just some bitter old woman my husband dumped? She snapped Amber, who never had much of an education to begin with, didn't even know how to respond. She stood there completely speechless. I wasn't angry. I simply took Mia's hand, waved Noah over, and walked out the door, leaving behind a graceful, confident figure. Well then, I said, as I left, may the two of you be blessed with eternal childlessness, a house full of children, and no marriage in sight. Although Mia and Noah had already been coming to stay with me every weekend, this was the first time they showed up with large suitcases and all. So my parents were overjoyed. unable to hide their smiles as they bustled about helping the kids unpack and settle in. I looked over at Noah, who had been quieter than usual on the drive home. What Mommy said back there at your dad's place wasn't true. Okay, I said gently. I was afraid he'd hold on to those words, that they might leave a scar. You know, Mommy isn't really like that. I kicked off my sore high heels, tied my messy waves into a ponytail, and returned to my usual self. And Mommy's not getting a boyfriend either from now on. It's just Grandpa. Grandma, you and your sister. You're all that matters to me. But I had to say those things. I added, lowering my voice. It's the only way I could trick your dad and Grandma into handing you over. They had to see you as a burden before they'd let go. You and Mia are me treasures. Mommy has been dreaming of this day. I know, Mommy. Noah's eyes sparkled. Then to my surprise, he said, but it's okay if you date someone you're really pretty. I couldn't help but laugh a little embarrassed. Mommy has to work hard and make money who has time to date. I'm easy to take care of, he said. Seriously, when I grow up, I'm gonna earn a lot of money, so you can go on dates. That one sentence told me everything, my son. He had the strength and resolve to grow into a real man. He was nothing like the unmotivated, dependent version of himself in my previous life back then. I'd sheltered him too much, and it ruined him this time. I saw clearly just how powerful proper guidance and parental example could be. Then how about my future golden boy supporter starts by studying hard? Now I teased, and maybe helps Mommy tutor. Mia too deal. So on their very first night living in my house, Mia found herself being supervised by her big brother, reading English out loud, memorizing vocabulary, reviewing her lessons while they studied. I got up to pour myself a glass of water and saw my dad in the kitchen, warming up milk for the kids, a soft smile resting at the corner of his lips. My mom was at the counter, wrapping many wontons for tomorrow's breakfast. It was such a simple, peaceful scene. All the people I loved were right here, under one roof. I hadn't had this kind of calm, secure life in decades, maybe not even in my past life. I silently thanked the heavens for giving me a second chance to wake up and take control. My days were full and purposeful, especially at night while the kids and I were deep in our books. My parents wouldn't even turn on the TV so we could focus. I knew they were happy too. Their daughter hadn't collapsed. In fact, it was like I'd never left. 6 months flew by, and just as Amber's belly was about to burst, Derek received a court summons. He stormed to my door in a rage. What the hell are you doing? The kid's already with you, isn't he? He hesitated a little when he saw the sharp glint in my dad's eyes. He hadn't expected me to go to court to formally file for a change in custody for Noah. I only agreed to let you temporarily raise him. Derek snapped. You can forget about taking full custody. But I knew exactly what he was thinking. Derek never truly cared about raising children. He only cared about our son. Because to him, parenting wasn't about love or responsibility. It was about power and custody. Gave him control. What he wanted was to push all the work and cost onto me, while still holding the final say. Noah was about to start middle school. Without the custody change, I'd have to drive an hour every day to drop him off at Derek's district school. It wasn't practical. I had plenty of logical, reasonable arguments, and Derek had no valid counter. I don't care, he said. You're not getting custody. If it comes to that, I'll just bring Noah back. The court's never going to give you both kids. I'll accept whatever the court decides, I said, coolly. So why are you even here wasting time? Shouldn't you be home taking care of the woman who's about to give birth? At the mention of Amber, Derek seemed to hesitate. Lena, you still care about this family, don't you? Otherwise, why would you keep? Actually, Amber and I never even registered our marriage, Derek admitted. I just couldn't bring myself to make her get an abortion. After all, it's still a life. If you're willing, I could still come by sometimes. This is my home too. We could still be a family of 4. Get out. The words were barely out of my mouth before I felt physically sick. I wanted to spit straight into his face. Derek, however, seemed to think he'd hit some kind of epiphany and kept trying to convince me seriously. Think about it this way. The kids would have a complete family again. And I've always loved you, Lena, before I even had to react. My dad kicked Derek out of the house. I didn't hesitate, immediately sent that entire security camera clip to Amber. That night, Derek's household exploded into chaos. My phone wouldn't stop ringing calls from Amber, Derek, his parents, all back to back. I didn't answer any of them. On the day of the hearing, Amber came with Derek. She was my age, which made her a high-rises pregnancy. Casey especially, since it was her second child, thanks to the hormonal roller coaster. Her once petite frame had swelled into a round balloon. Her face was oily puffy. I'd heard that this pregnancy had been especially hard on her, but she refused to terminate it. She was desperate to marry Derek as soon as she gave birth, so she'd quit her job and stayed home, obsessively tracking his whereabouts. Any red flag, and a full-blown domestic war would erupt. And after the video I sent her, she practically clung to Derek, and everywhere he went, terrified that he and I would rekindle anything. I could see the fear in his eyes. He was scared she'd lose it in public. So he went along with her demands, but his expression betrayed his disgust. So this was what it looked like to give up on someone and let them win the girl he once saw. As his fantasy was now dragging him through reality, the red thread of fate had turned into mosquito blood. During the trial, I submitted documentation proving I had been Noah's primary caregiver for over 6 months. I included receipts for medical visits, tutoring, extracurricular activities, even a heartfelt handwritten request from Noah asking to transfer legal custody to me. I also submitted chat logs showing how I had repeatedly asked Derek to help cover medical and educational expenses, requests he flat out rejected. It was clear, both financially and emotionally, Derek had contributed nothing. And what did Derek bring to court? Nothing but a single line. I don't agree, but the law is fair. I saw the judge's eyes grow colder and more unimpressed with every word Derek said, and it finally dawned on him. Since the day I asked for the divorce, I'd been setting this up. Step 1, keep him complacent. Step 2, get him to hand Noah over willingly. He thought he was manipulating me, but in the end, he'd walked himself into a trap. He thought he could control me with the kids while making me do all the work. Instead, not only did he lose custody, he was ordered to pay child support for both Noah and Mia every single month. 2 months later, Amber gave birth to a daughter. She was nothing like me. She wasn't the type to quietly endure. She forced Derek to stay home and co-parent with the threat of chaos hanging over his head. Maybe she saw in me what Derek was really like and realized that sacrificing yourself for a man was never worth it. Better to sacrifice him to protect yourself. Occasionally, Derek's mom would run into my parents at the market. She'd tearfully talk about how much she missed her grandkids and try to sneak in questions about my love life. But my mum shut her down every time. Don't worry about Lena, she said proudly. She's thriving. Leaving Derek was the best thing that ever happened to her. Mom wasn't wrong. By the time I turned 35, I had officially passed the first round of interviews for a highly competitive civil service position. They were hiring 4 people total, and with my scores, I was almost guaranteed a spotto. Keep things quiet and avoid jinxing it. My mom had been holding back her joy, but the moment I walked through the door, she couldn't resist. And here I thought your ex-husband just graduated college or something. She scoffed. Lena should be dating some young fresh-faced guy who wants that washed-up man. But that washed-up man made celery with lily bulbs tonight. I joked back. Let's see your little boy. Toy make that from the kitchen. My dad poked his head out with a proud grin. Excuse me, Grandpa is not a washed up. Old man, Grandpa is the coolest guy in this house. Mia suddenly jumped in like a little bootlicker. Mom Noah slacked off again. He didn't do his vocabulary writing. Can I hit him? Noah, looking every bit like a stern little teacher, furrowed his brow and got up ready to drag his sister back to the desk. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing, but my mom immediately smacked me on the back. Stop laughing. You should be doing something useful, like finding yourself a boyfriend. Why would I need a boyfriend when I'm doing just fine making money? I rubbed my head where she'd whacked me, pretending to sulk. Noah tossed his Chinese New Year savings booklet onto the table here. Mom, take the money. Use it to fund your love life. I stared at him, completely stunned. What is wrong with all of you? I turned to my dad for help. Dad, at least you're still normal, right? But he immediately averted his eyes and scurried off to the kitchen to serve my mom her dinner like a beautiful husband. Oh, come on, this is bullying. I groaned as laughter echoed through our little dining room. I looked around at the faces of the people who truly mattered. My parents, my 2 kids. Their bickering replaced by giggles. And my heart finally light. This wasn't the life I once dreamed of. It was better. I had no husband to lean on, no grand romantic gestures. But I had peace. I had clarity. I had mornings filled with breakfast chatter, evenings with quiet studying, and weekends of backyard picnics and movie marathons. I had a purpose that didn't rely on anyone else's approval. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving, I was thriving. So maybe there wasn't a knight in shining armor at the end of my story, but there was a woman who learned to save herself, and in doing so, built a life worth living. And that I've come to realize is the real happily ever after.